Tammy Oldham had always felt that the ocean spoke to her in a language few could understand, a language of silence and power, calm and chaos. When she met Richard Sharp, a skilled British sailor with sunburned skin and eyes that gleamed like the horizon, she felt her soul anchor for the first time. Together, they dreamed not of houses or cities, but of endless water and faraway lands. So when a wealthy couple asked them to deliver a 44-foot yacht named Hazana from Tahiti to San Diego, it wasn't just an opportunity, it was destiny. The morning they set sail, the sea was calm, wrapped in a golden dawn that promised adventure. The gentle breeze brushed against their faces, and the sail flapped softly like a heartbeat in rhythm with the ocean. Tammy stood barefoot on the deck, hair dancing in the wind, as Richard smiled from the helm. Everything felt infinite. They cooked together, sang to the waves, and took turns steering through the glittering expanse of blue. Every sunrise brought laughter, and every sunset brought stories whispered under the stars. It was more than a voyage, it was a love story written by the sea itself. But on the 12th day, the radio crackled with a warning. A storm, forming east of them, was growing into something monstrous, Hurricane Raymond. Richard looked at the map, his brow tightening. "We can't outrun it," he said quietly. "But maybe we can face it smart." Tammy's heart sank, but she trusted him completely. They lowered sails, secured lines, and tied everything they could. The wind began as a whisper but soon turned into a scream. By evening, the sky had changed colors, from soft blue to angry gray, and the waves rose like mountains. The boat tilted and groaned, the ropes straining as if alive. Richard shouted over the roaring wind, "Stay below deck, Tammy!" She obeyed, clutching the cabin walls as every crash of water sounded like thunder tearing the world apart. The night descended, but there was no darkness. Lightning split the sky into pieces, illuminating Richard above, fighting the storm, his body silhouetted against the chaos. Water poured into the cabin, and Tammy pumped it out with shaking hands, praying under her breath. Every second felt like an hour. Then came the roar, the sound of something massive snapping. The mast. It broke like a bone, crashing across the deck. "Richard!" she screamed, but her voice was swallowed by the storm. He looked back once, eyes fierce, then unhooked himself to secure the sail. The next wave came higher than all before it, a wall of water that towered over the yacht. It struck with unimaginable force. The world turned upside down. She felt herself thrown, tumbling through air and salt water, her body spinning until everything went black. When she opened her eyes, she was lying face down in the flooded cabin. Her head throbbed, her ears rang, and the world was eerily silent. The storm had passed. The boat was half sunken, broken but afloat. She pulled herself up, calling Richard's name. "Oh."
Edward Hale didn't sleep that night. The whisper kept looping in his mind, "You shouldn't have come back." He sat in the dusty hallway, flashlight trembling in his hand, waiting for the dawn that never seemed to arrive. The air inside the house felt wrong, heavy, as if time itself had stopped moving. Every corner seemed alive, every shadow breathing. At 3:17 a.m., his camera clicked on its own. One flash. He turned toward it, heart pounding, and saw that the tripod had moved, slightly angled toward the far wall. Something behind that wall was drawing his attention. The wallpaper there was torn, curling like old skin. When he pulled it back, his breath caught. A hidden door, narrow and wooden, stood before him, sealed with thick black nails. He hesitated, feeling an almost magnetic pull toward it. When he touched the handle, it was ice cold. The moment he opened it, the smell hit him first, damp, old wax, and something else, something rotten. He lifted his flashlight and saw a staircase spiraling downward into darkness. The steps creaked under his weight as he descended, and with every step, the air grew colder. The basement wasn't just a room, it felt like another world. The walls were covered in childlike drawings made with charcoal and something darker, thicker, that wasn't ink. There were melted candles on the floor, old toys scattered around, and dozens of small handprints pressed against the concrete, as if children had once tried to escape. At the far end of the room stood a wooden table, covered in photographs. Edward moved closer, the camera dangling from his neck. Each photograph showed families standing proudly in front of the same house, but in every picture, the father's face was scratched out, the mother's eyes gouged away, and the children blurred into nothingness. His flashlight flickered, and for a brief moment, he thought he saw movement inside one of the photos. When the light steadied, the faces in the photographs were looking straight at him. He stumbled backward, knocking over a candle. The flame sputtered but didn't die. The air began to hum, low and vibrating, like a whisper too deep to understand. Edward raised his camera and took a photo, hoping to capture proof of whatever was happening. The flash went off, and suddenly, he wasn't alone. In that split second, he saw them, faint silhouettes of children standing behind the table, their heads tilted, their bodies still. When the light faded, they were gone. His breath came in shallow bursts. Then, from the darkness, a voice, soft, fragile, almost childlike, said, "She's coming." Edward turned sharply, scanning the shadows, but there was nothing. The drawings on the wall began to change before his eyes. The childlike scrawls twisted into symbols, circles, crosses, spirals, and words written in a language he couldn't recognize. The deeper he looked, the more they seemed to move, as if alive. His camera clicked again, without him touching it. He looked at the preview. This time the image. Edward Hale could no longer tell if it was night or day. The air in the house felt timeless, heavy, as though he was trapped inside a memory that refused to fade. His flashlight battery had died hours ago, leaving him with the dim, trembling flame of a single candle he found in the basement. The drawings on the walls had changed again, now they showed a man standing in front of the house, surrounded by faceless children. That man looked exactly like him. Edward rubbed his eyes, whispering to himself, "I'm losing it." But then the candle flickered violently, and a sound like distant laughter echoed through the darkness. He turned, and his heart stopped. Hanging on the wall behind him was a mirror, one he hadn't noticed before. The surface was cracked, warped, but when he looked into it, the reflection wasn't his. The mirror showed the room exactly as it was, except for one detail: there was a woman standing behind him. Black veil. White dress. Motionless. He spun around. Nothing. But when he looked back, she was closer in the reflection, her head tilted, her hollow eyes staring through the glass. He raised his camera with shaking hands and snapped a photo. The flash burst across the basement, and for a fraction of a second, she was there, behind him, whispering something he couldn't understand. The photo that appeared on the screen froze his breath. Her mouth was open wide, too wide, as though screaming without sound. The candle blew out. Edward stumbled backward, his camera clattering to the ground. Objects around the room began to move on their own, photographs flying, toys sliding across the floor, the mirror trembling violently. The air turned icy. His breath came out as mist. The basement door suddenly creaked open on its own, revealing the staircase back to the main floor, but the light from above was red, like the glow of dying embers. He hesitated, but staying below was worse. As he climbed, he could hear faint whispers rising with him, dozens of voices overlapping, whispering his name again and again, Edward. 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 When he reached the top, the house had changed. The hallway was longer now, impossibly long, stretching into darkness. The wallpaper was peeling in long, curling strips that resembled human skin. The air smelled of burned wax and old blood. He walked slowly, the floorboards groaning beneath him. Every portrait on the wall now had a face, his face. Some smiling, some screaming, some staring blankly. He tried not to look, but the whispers grew louder, feeding on his fear. One door at the end of the hall stood slightly open, light seeping out through the cracks. He pushed it slowly. Inside was a child's bedroom, frozen in time. A small bed, a rocking chair, and toys scattered on the floor. In the center of the room, on the wall, hung a massive photograph, of the same woman in the black veil, holding a baby. Her face was blurred, but the baby's was clear. It was Edward. His stomach twisted. He stumbled backward, whispering, "No." The night was endless, but even darkness has its breaking point. The air trembled as if the world was preparing to scream one last time. Above the scorched horizon, the alien mothership loomed like a black sun, its surface splitting open, releasing waves of sickening light that turned the clouds into veins of fire. From its depths, a low-frequency hum rolled across the planet, a sound so deep that glass shattered, mountains cracked, and every living creature felt its heart falter. Then came the explosion. It started as a flicker, a pulse beneath the ground, then erupted into a blinding sphere of light that tore through the skies and split the alien ship in half. The mothership convulsed like a wounded beast, its metallic flesh melting into liquid fire as fragments rained down like meteors, crashing into what was left of cities. But there was no victory, only horror. The explosion unleashed something far worse. The air shimmered with ghostly energy, and the alien remains began to move again, not alive, but reanimating as twisted shapes, fusing with human corpses, creating grotesque hybrids of machine, bone, and screaming flesh. The ground opened, swallowing the ruins, as rivers of molten rock carried glowing fragments of alien technology deep into the earth. The sky turned blood red, and lightning crawled upward instead of down. Those who had survived the first war looked up in silent terror, realizing the aliens hadn't been killed, they were transforming. Their technology was rebuilding itself, absorbing the planet's energy. The Earth was becoming them. Everywhere, strange structures began to rise, spires made of living metal, pulsing with veins of light. They spread across continents, whispering in frequencies that made the air tremble and the human mind unravel. The survivors who ventured close enough to hear the whispers began losing their faces, their bodies warping, their eyes turning black. It wasn't death, it was assimilation. The planet's heartbeat grew louder, synced with the pulse of those alien towers. The Earth itself was now a living organism, half human, half invader. Above it all, fragments of the mothership circled like vultures, glowing faintly, humming in rhythm with the planet below. One piece, massive, burning, crashed into the ocean, boiling it into steam and creating a mushroom cloud that spread darkness across half the world. And from that darkness, a voice emerged, not from the sky, not from machines, but from the very ground beneath the survivors' feet. It wasn't words at first, just a vibration so deep it felt like thought. Then came the meaning, "You tried to destroy us, but you destroyed yourselves." The voice echoed for hours, even as the wind carried the ashes of humanity into the void. When the silence finally returned, the Earth looked unrecognizable, a dead planet glowing faintly red, wrapped in tendrils of alien metal. No birds. No waves. No sound. Just a quiet hum beneath the crust, like breathing. But if anyone had listened,